All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Women Make Awards Strategies for Successful Nominations webinar. My name is Tori Cox, and I am the Women's Engagement Manager at the Manufacturing Institute. We are thrilled to have you join us today as we prepare to recognize and celebrate the outstanding women in manufacturing. The Women Make Awards is a prestigious honor that recognizes women who have demonstrated excellence and leadership in the manufacturing industry. Today, we'll be discussing strategies to help you craft successful nominations. We'll go over key aspects of the nomination process, provide a live demonstration of the Awards Force platform, and hear insights from past nominators who have successfully navigated this journey. By the end of this session, we aim to provide you with the information and resources to feel confident in your ability to submit a strong nomination that truly reflects the achievements and accomplishments of your nominees. So let's get started. All right, so really quick, I wanted to go over some housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded and it will be shared next week with all of you, in addition to anyone who registered for this webinar. For that purpose, all participants, besides our guest speakers, will be muted. But if you do have questions, please use the chat feature to submit them. We have dedicated some time for a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. Here is the agenda. So first, I will give you an overview of the nomination guide, which includes information about the awards timeline, scoring criteria, and eligibility requirements, and then give a brief demo on our awards platform. And then we will hear from two of our past WMA nominators whose nominees were selected to receive a Women Make Award. Then they are going to give us some insight into how they selected their nominees and provide information on what they chose to highlight in their nomination. Then we will open the meeting for a Q&A session, and I'll just close the meeting by sharing some key items to remember. So let's dive into the nomination guide. Okay, so our nomination guide is structured into 5 sections. So we have the timeline, scoring criteria and eligibility, the sample application essay examples, and best company practices. And then we have the frequently asked questions. So now I'm just going to go over each of these sections in a little more detail, starting with the timeline. So so here are some important dates to note for the 2025 Women Make Awards cycle. August 1st, that is the date that the nominations opened. And on October 4th, that's the date they close. So during this time, nominators can submit their nominations. October through December, nominations will be blind peer reviewed by an external panel of peers and former WMA honorees, and the winners will be selected. January 9th, the nominators, human resource contacts, and corporate communication contacts will be notified of the application status. January 16th, honorees that have been selected to receive an award will receive their notification of their application status. January 31st is the deadline for honorees to accept their award. March 10th, the winners will be publicly announced on all of the WMA and Manufacturing Institute social media channels. April 23rd through the 24th, the Women Make Leadership Program will take place in Washington, D.C. And on the evening of April 24th, the Women Make Awards Gala will be held in Washington, D.C. So make sure to keep these dates in mind as you prepare your nominations. So now we have the criteria and eligibility. So the essay questions will be scored in 2 parts. So innovation and leadership, and then mentorship and community impact. We are looking for nominees who have made significant contributions to their community, to their company or division, and who have made contributions to their community through mentoring, advocating for manufacturing careers, and volunteering. So next we have eligibility. So there are two categories in which you can nominate someone. So first we have an honoree. So an honoree is a person who is currently employed in manufacturing at any level, from from the factory floor to the C-suite. So a maximum of one honoree from a single company may be selected for this award. The second category is emerging leaders. So this category is for rising stars in the manufacturing industry who have made significant contributions early in their careers. Emerging leaders must be between the ages of 18 and 30 as of December 31st, 2024. A maximum of one emerging leader from a single company may be selected for this award. But please note that previous honorees who have received the award are not eligible to receive the award again. However, emerging leaders who are alumni may be nominated as honorees. Also, nominees outside of the US are eligible as long as their company has US operations. So I just want to note again that a company can have up to two winners, one honoree, and one emerging leader. All right, so nominating someone for the Women Make Awards is a pretty straightforward process that just involves three steps. So I'm going to go into those steps now. All right, so the first step in the nomination process is to create a nominator account. To create a nominator account, you will go to the Awards Force platform homepage and fill out the requested information to set up the account. So we do recommend that companies designate a single point of contact for all nominations, as the company is allowed a maximum of 10 applicants. So before creating your account, you can check with us, the Women Make Awards team at womenmake@nam.org to find out if your company already has a designated contact. So feel free, to refer to our company best practices resource, which is located in the nomination guide for, tips on streamlining the nomination process within your company. After you log in, you will be redirected to a welcome page. So to begin, you just click the Start Nomination button at the bottom of the page. Then you will be asked to select a category. So we just ask that you choose the appropriate awards category for your nominee, either honoree or emerging leader. Then you just enter the nominee's name and just ensure that they meet the criteria for the selected category. Remember, emerging leaders must be between the ages of 18 and 30 as of December 31st, 2024. Then you'll just click Save and then Next. So the application, it consists of 5 sections. So it's details. That's where you just select the award category and list the nominee's name. The next section is nominee information. This is where you will list the nominee's general information. And then the next section is company contacts. So this is where we ask that you provide the nominee's human resources contact, the corporate communications contact, and the company representative contact. So I just want to talk about the company representative really quick. So the company representative is the person who will be responsible for providing support to the nominee throughout the information collection process. So that occurs like after the nominee has been informed they were selected to receive an award. So also this person will serve as the liaison between the nominee and internal teams within the organization. So in facilitating communication and decision making regarding like any on-site support during the Women Make Awards Gala and any other events. The next section is essays. So there are 4 short essays, each with a max of 250 words. So the responses to the essay question should highlight your nominee's contributions like in leadership. So the questions are just the first question, like share a noteworthy contribution or technical accomplishment your nominee has achieved at her company and explain its impact. The next question, describe a significant contribution your nominee has made in her community and why it's impactful. The next question is explain how your nominee has demonstrated leadership by mentoring others or engaging the next generation of female talent. And then the last question is just to tell and explain why your nominee should be chosen as a 2025 Women Make honoree or emerging leader. So this is the application. Um, yes, so the nominator's name, you just enter your information, contact information here, HR contact information, corporate communications contact, company representative, and then the essay questions are listed here. And this is an example of the emerging leaders application. All right, so the sample application and essay examples. This just is a preview of the application, basically what I just showed you. Um, so this allows you to just see the application and what it looks like without actually logging into the Awards Force platform. We also have examples of competitive applications that were submitted previously. So yes, we just provided this so that you can just see and get an idea of successful applications that were submitted in the past. And we have examples of both the honoree and emerging leader essays. So for companies with multiple locations, managing multiple nominations can be a bit challenging. So that's why we've included some best practices resources from small and large manufacturers just to help you streamline your process. And then at the bottom, we just have some frequently asked questions. So this is just a list of questions that have been asked in the past that we received from nominators. And then you can just click on each to see the answer. Okay. So a well-crafted nomination is the foundation of a successful submission. It's not just about listing the achievements, but it's also about like telling a compelling story that highlights your nominee's contributions, leadership, and impact on the manufacturing industry. There are common pitfalls that can weaken an otherwise strong nomination, such as vague descriptions, lack of specific examples, or not fully aligning the nominee's achievements with the award criteria. So, today we are fortunate to have with us 2 experienced nominators who have successfully put forward nominees for the Women Make Awards. First, we will hear from Sarah Hainline of BASF Corporation, followed by Chris West of Winnebago Industries. They will share their nomination experiences from how they selected their nominees to how they chose to highlight their nominees' achievements and accomplishments. So, Sarah, welcome. Can you start by introducing yourself and tell us about your connection to the Women Make Awards, and then share some insight into the strategies you found most effective when submitting a WMA nomination?
Sure. Thank you, Tori, and thank you to the Manufacturing Institute for including BASF in today's webinar. This is one of our favorite programs that we participate in outside of the company, so we're very happy to be here. So I am Sarah Hainline, like Tori said, and I am with BASF, and I'm located in Geismar, Louisiana, which is where our largest manufacturing facility in North America operates. So if you're not familiar with BASF, I'll just quickly give you a little who are we or about us explanation. So BASF is a global company, and we create chemistry for sustainable solutions. And so we operate everywhere. Our products go into products that everyone uses every day. So our operations, our manufacturing folks touch a lot of products that then affect or impact people they know, themselves, their families, their neighbors. So in 2015, BASF took a look at our workforce and really thinking, we create chemistry for a sustainable future. So we need a sustainable workforce to help us do that. And where we saw some gaps were in female representation across the board in manufacturing. And so at that time, we made a very intentional strategy to diversify our workforce and really provide opportunities for development and recognition for women who are already working in manufacturing. And so, one of the things that we started was nominating women for this award. At that time, it was called Step Ahead, and we have stuck with it, and it has grown significantly in terms of the women who we could nominate. There's so many amazing stories and so many amazing women in manufacturing. And so over the years, we've had to evolve our nomination process internally so that it's smooth. It involves all the people that need to be involved, and we're being equitable across North America to ensure that the women who really deserve this recognition are able to be nominated. So, the way we do this, and I've been working on this since 2017, and at that time it was kind of a send me a list of the names that you want to nominate, and then I would go and find more information. And that was not very efficient. And I'm sure all of you who are on this call know that in our world, efficiency is key, and lots of experts can help us figure out how to be more efficient. And so we looked at our process and we made some changes. So at BASF in North America, we have what we call a manufacturing community steering committee. And that committee serves as the manufacturing leader for our manufacturing sites here in the US and in North America. And so that is the team who sponsors this program for us. And that's the team that we use to receive nominations from manufacturing across the board. And so what we do now is we have a Microsoft form that we use as a survey, and it has all the same questions that are on the actual form through the Manufacturing Institute. And so we gather information. That's the first step, gather information on potential nominees. And then we bring a smaller committee of our manufacturing steering committee together to review all of those. We talk through, okay, where might we need to beef up one question or another question? And then from there, we narrow it down to usually 5 nominees for the honoree category, and then usually 2 to 3 for the emerging leader. And we've been successful over the years in some of our women being selected, which is very exciting. And then for those who are not selected, we still recognize them internally. And that's something we've started doing just in the last probably 3 to 4 years. And the Manufacturing Institute provides certificates of nomination for us to use. And so we print those out, we have them framed, and then we have a leader present that to the women who were not selected. So, that seems to have worked out great. And then we also have had women that were nominated and not selected, and then we re-nominated them a second year, and they have been selected. And so I encourage you, if you have someone that you really believe is a great example of what it means to be a Women Make honoree or emerging leader, keep nominating them and tweak your nomination. Learn from webinars like this. Or I still, even after doing this for 7 years, I look at the example essays every year just to make sure I'm staying competitive with our nominations. So let me go back a little bit. Once we determine who we're going to nominate, I take a look at the form and the information that has already been submitted internally. And then I meet with each nominee individually to just kind of talk through the questions, but then also to learn about them. And I think one of the things that we have gotten much better at over the last few years is really telling that person's story. So it's not just about answering the question, right? And showing what the technical accomplishment was, but it's really about who they are and how being who they are as women in manufacturing has helped them be successful within our company and make an impact in our industry. So, to give a couple maybe like high level examples of what I mean by that, for a technical accomplishment, we had a winner from 2021. I think it was a 2021 class. And so we kind of told her story. So, noteworthy contribution or technical accomplishment. She had progressively grown in her career over time. And so we included some information about that. But then she took on a new role in an interim capacity and was able to make very significant impact in terms of an increase in production capacity. And so, we weren't able to use, specific numbers of what the capacity was before and what it was after, but we can use percentages. And so we included that number and then how she was able to do that. And so it wasn't just the what, but it was also the how, because who this person is how she was able to get her team to increase production capacity, right? So it doesn't just happen. She's a good leader. She was able to lead a team to accomplish this goal. So it's about her, but it's also about how she works with others to bring that impact to life. And then on the community piece, sometimes we forget that other people don't know what we're talking about, right? If we know a lot about something. And so what we do on the community piece is really explain, if they're involved in a nonprofit locally, why does that matter? Are there stories that we can include or little even quotes from people maybe who are impacted by that community involvement? And so we try to do that with anyone that we nominate. And then for the mentoring piece, I would say 90% of the women that work at BASF are actively engaged in mentoring. And so in some way, maybe it's not formal, but certainly informal. And so we include not only what they do, but then also kind of their philosophy around mentoring. Why do they do it? Most of them don't only mentor women, they're also mentoring men. And so we include kind of, again, that whole story, the whole picture of who that person is, why they mentor, what that looks like, and why it matters. So then we also support our women. So we usually buy 3 tables at the event. I encourage all of you, if you can go and you haven't, go. It's always an amazing event. We love it. And we have also made it an opportunity for us to gather our manufacturing community steering committee in the same city. So we meet in DC for our quarterly meeting so that we can all support the women who are selected for this award or these awards. And then we also have started recently, in the same year that we started nominating women for this award, we started an internal development program for women in manufacturing. And so we now launch the new cohorts at the same time as the Women Make Awards in DC so that there's networking opportunities for those women. And then we also consider their participation in that internal development program when we're looking at who we want to nominate. And so we now have this great pool of women who are, some early in career, some approaching the end of their career, who have gone through that program and kind of have that badge of honor, to say, I've put in the work, I've excelled in my career, and I've accelerated my career through this development program. And then we wrap all of that up in communication. So whenever you're filling out the form online, just be sure that if you aren't the person that's doing the communication stuff, or if you're not the HR contact, make sure that person knows that you've put their name down. I'm lucky that I get to kind of manage all of it, and I reach out to the people internally that I need to. But just a thought there, and then I think this is also an opportunity for you to repurpose content, and we do that all throughout the year with the communications that we develop for this program. So I think I will stop there, Tori. I think I'm at my time limit.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. So now we will have Chris West of Winnebago Industries joining us. So, Chris, could you introduce yourself and give us a little background into your connection to the Women Make Awards and just share some of your insights and any tips you have for those who may be new to the nomination process?
Great. Yep. So thank you very much. Chris West, Winnebago Industries. Whenever I did the nomination this last year, my role was a little bit different than it is today. Before I was running our enterprise operations. Today I'm running one of our portfolio of businesses based out of Iowa, but I'm based in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Our organization, we have about somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 employees. We have 6 portfolio brands in the what we call the outdoor lifestyle industry, RV manufacturing, as well as marine. We own brands such as Winnebago. Most people in the United States are very well aware of the Winnebago brand, but we also have brands such as Chris Craft, which is the nation's oldest manufacturer of boats, 150 years. And then we've got Barletta, which is another one of our brands in the marine industry, and Grand Design, Newmar. And Lithionics is a new battery company that we own. So we're set up a little bit differently than some organizations where we are just right now based out of the United States, but we have multiple locations. But we have an enterprise team, enterprise set of functions that we kind of collaborate and work with all of our businesses, which ultimately is kind of how we managed the nominations this year. We are members of National Association of Manufacturers as well as the Manufacturing Leadership Council. So ultimately very well connected with Manufacturing Institute as well as Women in Manufacturing. So I think that Sarah did a really nice job of covering kind of an overall process, and I think it's probably better. This was our first year from Winnebago Industries making a nomination. And of course, we had somebody, Melissa Boom, who was recognized as an honoree and selected. And what I think I want to do is, instead of talking about the overall process, I'll talk about maybe what worked well and what did not work well and things we would change that may be helpful to this team. When we looked at kind of our approach, ultimately this started with me and my role, and it was very easy for me to select Melissa. But I tried to be as open about the nominations versus keeping this under any type of veil of secrecy. But I think we could have done a better job. I could have done a better job of really communicating, that strategy across our businesses. So as I made the nomination for Melissa, I coordinated with all of our different business units to get the word out and talk about that. But I'm not sure all of our leaders in our businesses use that same type of an approach. I believe that when you're advocating for women, it's better to let them be a part of the journey versus surprising them. It allows them to take some level of ownership in this journey. And as Sarah said earlier, I think really allowing people to tell their story is far better than maybe what we're able to do, because sometimes you're just not as close to what happens out in the community. It's very clear what people do inside of your business. It's not always as clear what they're capable of and what they are doing out in the community. The other thing is, although a surprise is probably nice, whenever I was looking at this, I thought the real enjoyment is going to come from somebody actually getting the recognition, receiving the award, and then actually attending the awards recognition event. So as I shared most of the information throughout the organization, we use the Women Make criteria. What I think what we could do a lot better job, and what I'd make a recommendation, is think about how you better market this throughout the organization versus more of the organic approach that we took this last year. I think marketing through the organization, better communication would do a better job, but also creating a channel where people could put their names in a hat to say, hey, I believe that I qualify that I meet the criteria. Because I think we want to really encourage versus discouraging, people, and allowing more women to really take ownership of raising their hands and saying they're qualified versus maybe us hand picking. Now, I know there could be some negative impacts if somebody's not selected, and I think that just requires great conversations. We've got great ladies in our business who are able to have conversations. I know Melissa, we've really leveraged her to have conversations with people about, here are the things that she did. This is what success looked like for her. And then ultimately, how do we start to teach other women that this is what it does take to be qualified to actually receive the award. And those are changes I believe we're going to make this year, specifically around those areas. Once we found the group of women that we really believe should be nominated, we left it up to their respective leaders to fill out, to kind of get the story. I personally reached out to Melissa and had her do the first pass on the nomination. So going through and filling out all of the information so that her story could be told, not just based off of what I knew. And then otherwise, I believe that we would have left out really important details that were critical to the selection process and making sure that everything was in there that needed to be in there. Then it was super easy for me to go through as her leader and add the additional information that I knew based on my perspective. That way, the story got told from multiple perspectives. The only thing I think I'd do differently is really create a more formal process where all of the leaders in our business did something similar. I think the approach that I took specifically with Melissa was very successful. And ultimately, I think that's something that we're going to have to do differently in our business as we go forward, because I'm not sure that everybody had their stories told. The other thing that I did to make this personal, and at the time this was kind of the secret, is reaching out to Melissa's family, to her daughters, getting input from them. Ultimately, that fed into a speech that I was able to do last year at the awards, not at the ceremony, but at one of the events that happened that day. And I think it was a nice personal touch that made, I think, Melissa feel better about the nomination, and really having the voice of her daughters come out in that nomination as well. And the last piece where I would land here is, I think once that somebody that you have nominated is selected, I think there's one thing you really want to do is make it special for them, but also inform them of how you're going to share the information across the organization internally, what information is going to be shared, but also talk to them about the external recognition, but making sure they're not guessing, well, what's going to happen next? How is this going to play out? Being really clear about what the intentions of the organization are to market what's happened to them. And the last thing I would say is attending the event is really important. Being there, I was there this last year with Melissa and with her significant other. And what I was a little surprised is how many people were there by themselves and they weren't represented by their companies. Whatever you can do to make sure that there is representation from the company there to really support and recognize. And for me, standing on the sideline, I think was important for Melissa, but it was also important for me to share that moment with her. So I'd recommend anybody that is successful in the nomination, whatever you can do to be there and be present with them is really critical, because I think this is one of those things that doesn't happen, of course, every day in somebody's life, and being able to share that with people in your business, I think is very, very important. So I will pause there.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Chris, for giving us an insight into, your internal process, and how you streamline, your company's like nominations. So now, yes, so we are going to open the floor for Q&A now. Let me share my. And so if you have any questions about the nomination process, the awards platform, or anything else we've discussed today, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box.
We already have a few, so I'm going to go over a few just in case some folks join later. It may not have scrolled all the way up. But first question was, if you have a particular person, can you nominate them for both categories of the award? And we say we would advise nominating a particular person in the one category that reflects them the most. Another question that came up is that, yes, new this year is that each company is allowed one honoree and one emerging leader. And should the answers in the essay portion of the nomination be written in the first person or the third person? And does it matter? So to Chris's point earlier, so he had Melissa write up some pieces about herself and then added his perspective and other leaders and her family and so forth. We just asked that if you do ask the nominee to add their input, to make sure that once you do the final form, it turns into third person, just because we don't allow self-nominations. So if we have our blind peer review see the words I throughout the nomination form, that might raise a red flag to say, I think this was a self-nomination, and then we would have to do some review there, and that just might delay some processes. So just best that no matter what, to eventually, at a certain point in your process, turn it third person. And let's see, how many winners will you select in each category each year? So every year we have 100 honorees and 30 emerging leaders. Any advice on when to notify the nominees? This one particular person says they struggled as a company to determine if the nomination should be written alongside the nominee or if it should be more of a surprise. I think to both Chris and Sarah, great examples of seeing it when it's not a surprise, when they're involved in the process. I think with everything, there's pros and cons to both. We have seen it as a surprise later on. As Sarah mentioned, we share the certificates of nominations and so forth, and it can turn into a celebration at that point. I think it's just what's best for you and your company if you can build out the processes and learn from the lessons that Chris and Sarah shared, then perhaps maybe this year you change it up and do something new and try to do it ahead of time and see the impact of that. How many nominees in each category is allowed? So we have no limitation to the amount of nominations in general as a whole, but per company, you only are allowed 10 nominations. And that is for both emerging leaders and honorees. So you can have 5 emerging leaders, 5 honorees, or any combination of numbers, but it all adds up to 10. That is the amount allowed. Great questions. But how many nominees do we get each year? It varies year over year, but last year we had a little under 700. That's why we wanted to offer this great session, because as you can see, that number, it can turn very competitive. And so we wanted you to have all the tools and resources to submit some really great nominations.
Any other questions?
Any specific advice on soliciting nominations? Reach out to specific individuals versus managers. Maybe to your point, Sarah, they said they like the idea of the Microsoft form. Is that something you spread company-wide? Do either one of you want to add some extra notes?
I can add to that. The way we do it, the way we're set up with our steering committee is that they all have constituents who are all site leaders. So regardless of the size of the site, they're all included. It is not spread company wide, meaning, a mass email to every single employee, but it is done through that. We call it a cascade, constituent cascade of information. We also, in addition to that, check in with our ERG leader, our employee resource group leaders, to see if there are any women that are, members of those that they would like to submit for consideration to the steering committee. So we try, and part of that is because we realized, to be completely honest, that our nominees all looked very similar to each other. A lot of white women were being nominated. And so we wanted to ensure that there was equity in this process. And so we added that a few years ago. And that it has worked well. And so we did have a person of color who was selected last year. But we do not, I guess, allow all employees to submit nominations. It's done through their managers or through their HR contacts.
Any other questions? No other questions. All right. So we're just gonna go on to the next slide. So here are just some items to remember. So the nominations for the 2025 Women Make Awards, they open on August 1st and they will close on October 4th. The submissions must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To nominate someone, you can visit the Manufacturing Institute's 2025 Women Make Awards page or go directly to the platform at wma.awardsplatform.com. The winners are selected by an external panel of peers and former honorees who evaluate each nomination on a numerical scale. The nominations can be submitted by company leadership, colleagues, or external peers. While self-nominations are not allowed, someone can ask someone to submit a nomination on their behalf. There is no cost to submit a nomination, but companies should prepare, to support their nominees' participation in the leadership conference in Washington, D.C. And each company can submit up to 10 nominations, but only 2 winners. One honoree and one emerging leader can be selected from each company. So, yeah, as we wrap up today's session, I'd just like to thank all of you for joining us. I want to give a special thank you to our guest speakers, Sarah Hainline of BASF Corporation and Chris West of Winnebago Industries. Yeah, we hope that this webinar will serve as a great resource to you as you craft your 2025 Women Make Awards nominations. And just remember, the nomination this nomination, like, it's an opportunity to just shine light, on the incredible women who are making a difference in the manufacturing industry. So the deadline to submit your nomination is October 4th. So please take your time, follow the guidelines, and tell their story in a way that truly, captures their impact. So if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Women Make team at womenmake@nam.org. Thank you again and happy nominating.